Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Hands On channel. Sorry, it's been a minute since I've been able to upload a video. I've been really busy doing a lot of prepping stuff here for my own family, my own household. But today I want to talk to you guys about something that I've mentioned several times in my videos, and I thought, it's time we actually do a deep dive into this and we explain what this actually is to people that may not know anything about this. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Agenda 2030. Which was basically just like Agenda 21 on steroids. It was just a reinforced version or an updated version for the year 2030. And many people miss that point of the thing. They think it's just a random number, but no, Agenda 21 was for the year, that was their goals to achieve by the year 2021. Agenda 2030 are the goals that the UN hopes to achieve by the year 2030. And you might be thinking right now, well, it's the UN. They don't have any sovereignty or any say over us. We have the United States Constitution. Yes, in theory, you're right. The problem is that many presidents have pushed us more toward this New World Order globalist agenda. George Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, even to some degree, some of the things that Trump did. Although my argument in favor of Trump is that he was the most anti-globalist president we've had in modern era. And that's one of the reasons that the globalists and all of the deep state people hated Trump so vehemently. It was because he was anti-globalist, anti-China, and a lot of this other stuff, and pro-USA. Or at least that was his, what he ran on. I believe he truly was pro-USA. There's some debate about that and some of the things he did, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Agenda 2030. And this is not only being done on a national level, this is being done on a city-wide level. So your local mayors and your cities, especially in these blue states, have adopted a lot of these things early on so that they could basically usher in the New World Order. And don't kid yourself for a second. The Agenda 2030 is the New World Order. This is them writing out what their agendas are by 2030 to achieve global governance over every country in the entire world. That's their stated goal. They want to have total control over everything, essentially. So I'm going to read through some of these here, these goals. These are all in bullet point forms, and I'll do a little commentary at the end of each one, or tell you what I think the translation really means, what they're really trying to say here. So goal number 1 of Agenda 2030. Oh, and I almost forgot. When I say the UN, the Democrats are in lockstep, pun intended, with Agenda 2030. They know what this is. They've been implementing this agenda around the country on a city level and on a state level in some cases. So here are their stated goals of Agenda 2030. Goal 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. And on the surface of that, like all of these other things that they say, they sound real good and like, oh, well, who wouldn't want to end poverty in all forms everywhere? Well, the way they go about that is why I'm opposed to it. It's not that I don't want less people to be in poverty. Of course I want less people to be in poverty. But the way I want that to happen is through hard work and determination and people pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and pulling themselves out of bad situations by gaining experience in the job force and, moving up accordingly. Based on your qualifications and your merit of work, essentially. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about ending poverty by implementing centralized banks. Think of the IMF, the World Bank, the Fed, to control all finances. Digital one world currency in a cashless society. I've been hearing about this cashless society for a long time. In fact, you could really say the one world currency. I've been hearing about that even longer. I remember back in my Sunday school lessons, one of the things that came up from time to time was that, and in my later days when I was learning about the book of Revelations and stuff like that, one of the things that came up was that before the end times, there would be a one world currency. Now, they didn't call it a digital currency way back then because they didn't know anything about digital currency back then, but they did say that there would be a one world currency. And, for years and years, I've heard many people saying openly that, cash makes no sense. It costs us too much money to have this cash in circulation, and, it carries germs, it's dirty, and on and on and on. But what they leave out is that cash gives you the ability to do a transaction without being traced. And I don't know if you've been following the news or not, but one of the things in their next round of, what is it, infrastructure, or I can't remember what they're calling it, but this next thing where Congress is talking, it's stalled out right now, but they're talking about 3.5 trillion additional dollars on top of the last infrastructure bill. So, I mean, they're trying to print us into oblivion right now. One of the things they were talking about in that bill was monitoring, or having the IRS monitor every single transaction in your bank account, or that you do anywhere on any electronic digital bank or whatever, or any site like that, where you spend more than $600 or you deposit more than $600. The IRS is going to make a little note of that and check it out and see if, that's legitimate. What you're doing is on the up and up. So, I mean, they're already talking about clamping down here in the United States using the IRS and other bureaucracies. They've done this crap before where they punish certain groups and stuff like that. If you've been around in the politics scene for a while, during Obama's term, they openly punished the people that were in religious groups that didn't agree with Obama, and also the Tea Party organizations. They wouldn't let them file 501c3s or whatever it was for tax exemption statuses and stuff like that. So they're punishing and picking and choosing winners and losers all the time. But their end goal, all of these people, the Democrats, the UN, the New World Order people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and George Soros and all these others, what they want is centralized banks and control of all finances. That's it. There will be no capitalism. It'll all be doled out through, either whatever job they assign you, or, it's really communism. It's pure blown communism is what they're talking about. Digital one world currency in a cashless society. Well, I say no thank you. And I would argue that the Constitution would argue against that as well, if anybody else besides people on YouTube spoke about the Constitution openly anymore. But that's almost becoming a bad word. I saw something the other day. Where was that? I can't remember where it was, but somebody listed a piece of real estate for sale on like Realtor.com or something like that. And the guy had in the article something about liberty and the Constitution. And Realtor.com, maybe it wasn't Realtor.com, but it was one of these places like that, basically banned the guy from the MLS listings because it had the words liberty and the Constitution in it. And they said that can't remember how they put it, but that was racist or something like that. Or I can't recall exactly what they said on that. If I can find it, I'll put the little headline right here. But it is just one example. I mean, the National Archives just basically said that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were too racist for people to see, and I don't know, just too incendiary. I don't know. But the point is they're banning us from being able to see our own history in the name of, racism and stuff like that. So goal number 2, it's sort of similar to goal number 1, but it's end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. So what do they mean by that? Well, they mean promote more GMO foods. They mean reduce consumption of meat. And Biden and others have said that in recent years at some of these different globalist summits that they're holding. Make people eat bugs. I mean, I think it was Klaus Schwab's that said, that people should eat bugs instead of meat, basically. So you like that T-bone steak? Well, you're gonna love this imitation June bug pie over here. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not eating bugs. I don't live in a third world country. I live in a first world country, and I plan on keeping it that way if I can keep these idiots that are in charge from spinning us into oblivion and ruining everything, which is what they're actually doing. Goal number 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. Translation, mass, can I say that word? I don't know. Translation, mass vaccination. Codex alimentarius, fancy UN word for food code. So they're going to have a food code, and I'm sure bugs and meat and all this other stuff will be in there, and it'll all be tied to your social credit score or whatever. So maybe if you're a good boy that month, you'll get to have a hamburger, a real hamburger made out of real cow beef, meat. You'll be able to actually have a real hamburger that month if you're good. But if you're not good, and your social credit score is bad, forget about it. You ain't ever going to eat meat again. Junebug pie for you, boy. So goal number 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So what's the translation on that? I mean, it sounds good, right? You want everyone to be included and have equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for everyone. I mean, that sounds good, right, on the surface, but here's what they really mean. Promote UN Marxist propaganda, brainwashing through compulsory education from cradle to grave. Don't believe me? Go look at some of the stuff, some of the headlines that are going around right now. I mean, anywhere from the teacher that has the rainbow flag and they're making the kids pledge allegiance to the rainbow flag, the other teacher that had the Black Lives Matter, the other teacher that was caught on some kid's cell phone camera basically saying your parents are dumb, don't listen to them, blah, 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 blah. If they voted for Trump, they're dumb, on and on and on. So, complete UN Marxist propaganda brainwashing. That's what's going on in our education system right now. So, I mean, they've really already achieved goal 4. They just probably want to further implement it and make sure to exclude any other positions besides theirs. So if you happen to have conservative parents or whatever, and you come into school and you say something conservative to your teacher, they want to be able to just totally excoriate you and embarrass you in front of the class so that you will never dare say anything like that again. And to some degree, a large degree, it's been very effective. So goal 5 here, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. I mean, again, doesn't that just sound just totally wonderful? I mean, these people, they've got all the best ideas. But here's what they really mean. Population control through forced family planning. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but a lot of these Marxist groups, such as BLM, at one time on their website openly said they were against the family. They think the family is somehow institutionally racist or something like that, and it couldn't be further from the truth. You need your family. Your family is the most important component to operate in a constitutional republic. You need your family on your side in times that you have to be on sides, you know, so this is just another sample of how they're trying to divide us, and they are dividing us through all of their systems. Another thing I'll say about gender equality, I don't know if you saw it or not, and I can't even remember the fighter's name, nor do I care to learn the fighter's name, but there's some transgender fighter that went into the UFC, and there were all these pictures about how she beat up another woman. And I mean, I guess she beat the shit out of this poor woman. You know, the woman is a normal framed woman, and here comes a man that's pretending to be a woman that's being allowed to compete in the same arena as somebody that, you know, I mean, I just can't imagine that, guys. I mean, if you trained all your life to be a UFC fighter and you're a female, you know, and then all of a sudden a person with a clearly distinct body build difference because they were born a male are allowed to compete with you on the same level. I mean, that is just completely ridiculous. That right there is the best example of how not only the United States, but the world, because of people at the UN and other people that have Marxist globalist agendas, have been pushing this gender stuff on everybody, this gender bender stuff on everybody. It's just, you show me a society where they've had, you know, openly gay marriage, transsexuals, all this other stuff that's going on, and the LGBT community and all this other stuff, every other part of the alphabet, and all these confused gender kids that are out there. You show me a society that's actually succeeded with that mentality. I would argue there are none. I mean, when you get to that level, basically it's like Sodom and Gomorrah level, and the next thing that happens is God smites down or smotes down your city, and you don't want to be there. So probably not a good idea to be playing around with that stuff. Number 6, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. I mean, again, doesn't that just sound wonderful on the surface? All they want to do is just ensure that there's availability and sustainability, man. Well, what they're not telling you or what they're not saying is how they're going to achieve that. It's through control. Here's the translation. NWO control of all water sources. Don't forget to add fluoride, and also your trash services. So This is all about control and taking away your individual sovereignty and your national sovereignty and taking away your Constitution and your liberty, your God-given rights, more importantly. Goal number 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Honestly, we had fairly affordable energy during the Trump administration. Our fuel prices were the lowest I've ever seen them. And speaking of that, on this topic, over the years, a lot of presidents have said things that have, been in their campaign about, and they're usually like generic, feely good things like, we're going to end poverty in all of its forms everywhere. We're going to end world hunger, or we're going to end hunger in the United States and achieve this. Or the one that was most commonly played was, we're going to get the United States off of foreign oil. Well, guess what, snowflakes? Donald J. Trump was the first president in history, at least as far as to my knowledge, since we've been on foreign oil, that's been able to achieve that goal. And of course, he got zero credit for it. The media didn't, give him his due on that and talk about that in a positive way. But, you remember our energy prices were quite a bit cheaper under Trump than they were under Obama, and certainly under Biden. Because if you remember what Obama said back in the day around 2008, he says, under my energy plan, your energy prices will necessarily skyrocket, because they've realized that if they want to get people to use less stuff, the easiest, quickest way to do that is make the stuff cost way more money. So then people will have to use less. They'll be forced to use less, even though we have an abundance of it in surplus in many cases. They don't care about that. They want you to use less so that when they're doing their, G7 talks and all these other, whatever other globalist bullcrap NWO thing that they're selling the United States out to at the time, they can say, oh, look, yeah, we've reduced this. We've reduced our energy consumption, blah, blah, blah. Well, what they're not saying is, yeah, we did that by raising the prices up so high that nobody in their right mind would leave the light switch on anymore. So none of this stuff is done in a way that you and I would do it. It's done in a way of control, because these people are controllers and they're trying to basically get their tentacles attached to every aspect of your life here in the United States. And once that happens, there is no Constitution that's going to save you anymore. Once these people have taken full control, it's over. So let's go back to that number 7 again. They want to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And what's the translation on that? Smart grid with smart meters on everything. Peak pricing. I told a buddy of mine years ago, I said, you know what? One of these days, they came out to my house and they put a smart meter on my house without my permission. I'll tell you the truth. I was using the bathroom, number 2, and I heard a knock at the door. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm right in the middle of using the bathroom, so I tried to hurry up and run out there and see who the hell was knocking on my door. And by the time I got done using the bathroom and going and checking the door, I see the electric guy leaving in his little electric car. And I'm like, okay. And it wasn't electric powered, but it was the electric company car. And he's leaving down my driveway. It was too late for me to holler at him, and I had toilet paper hanging out of the back of my pants. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that they didn't ask my permission. They came out here later that day. I went outside and I was looking around. I'm like, what did he do? Did he just come read the meter or what? And I look up and there's one of these new smart meter, grid meter things on my house, again, without my permission. Now you could make the argument, well, that's their meter if they want to do it that way, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree. That's my house, and that meter is put on the side of my house without my permission, and I'm still mad about that. That happened like 5 years ago. I'm still ticked off about that. And there ain't jack I can do about it. It's already a done deal. So that's how they do a lot of this stuff. And I was telling somebody years ago, you just wait. One of these days, all you people, including me, that are out here on a well, on a private well, that has, you had full permission to drill that well, or you bought the house that already had the well, it's a legal well. One day, they're going to say every single well in the United States will need to be tapped with a meter. And then that'll be the first step. The second step will be, you're only allowed to use so many gallons per person per household. And then if you go over that, they'll cap and trade tax you or some other excess tax that they'll put on you and charge you to pump water out of your own well. Think I'm lying? I mean, just you think that's too far to believe? You think that's too far of a reach to believe that? I don't think so. I think that's the next logical thing. And we get into some other stuff here in a minute where they're talking about water and stuff like that that kind of backs that up. So, this is bad stuff. Number 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. So that right there, I mean, that's a mouthful. Promote sustained. And anytime they say sustained, they don't mean like long term. They mean like sustainable, like, and here it even says it, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. And anytime I see that sustained or sustainable in any of these UN prints, I know what they really mean is basically environmental stuff. It's environmental protection stuff is what they're talking about. So promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full productive employment, and decent work for all. Who is going to be the one that determines what is decent work and what is not decent work? Is it going to be Klaus Schwab or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi? Or, I mean, who's going to do that? Just questions I have. So what's the translation to number 8? The translation is TPP, free trade zones that favor mega corporate interests. So whatever your favorite mega corporation is, Walmart, Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, think of those guys. The ones that got to stay open during the lockdown, think of those people. They're the ones that are going to be promoted the most because they've already proven, a lot of these big companies have already proven that they're willing to kiss the ring of the UN. So, I mean, they're in like Flynn. Goal number 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. So there we go again with more sustainable industrialization, meaning that it's going to have heavy environmental controls over it and regulations. And, you're not going to be able to do certain things. You certainly won't be able to use any coal or do anything with any coal because you can't get enough scrubbers on it. Meanwhile, China can make all the coal plants they want. United States can't do jack shit. We can't do anything. We can't even, I remember a couple of years ago, the last lead manufacturer or smelter in the United States moved over to China. And I was like, hey guys, this is kind of a big deal. I mean, we need lead not only for industrial applications, but to make our boomsticks function. We need a source of lead here in the United States. But, no one else thought about that, I guess, or no one in power that had any way to do anything about it. So they're going to build us some resilient infrastructure and promote inclusive, sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. So the translation to that is toll roads. Even under Donald Trump, I heard him talking openly about toll roads. I am adamantly opposed to toll roads. I think they're a Ponzi scheme. We've got toll roads in this state that were promised that they were going to be paid off by a certain date, and yet that date came and went, and that road was never made a public highway. Instead, it remains a toll road and will continually remain a toll road until the end of time, because these people have no intention of turning over a cash cow like cars driving up and down the road throwing change in the hole, or now you have to have the smart card or whatever, or they just bill you or whatever. So unbelievable. Toll roads, public transit, and remove free travel, environmental restrictions, and per mile fuel tax. These are all things I've heard people talking about in our federal government, especially the per mile fuel tax. Biden had some sort of a deal here recently where that was one of the things they were looking into, is to find out if it was a good idea to do a per mile fuel tax. Let me guess. Yes, it's probably a good idea from their perspective because it's more ways they can tax you and control your travel. If you're driving a big Suburban like I am, or a Chevy truck or something that doesn't get very good fuel mileage, then you're not going to be able to travel very far, are you? Because your allotment of monthly miles or whatever they'll say, oh, you're only allowed to travel this far. That's what I'm saying. This stuff all leads to the type of controls where it's not just them monitoring at a certain point. They're telling you, oh, you've exceeded these miles that you're allowed this month. Now you must pay additional tax. That's where this ends, guys. Tax everything, and tax it 2 or 3 times if they can. You could argue that the roads are taxed 3 times, I believe, especially if you consider toll roads as a voluntary, or what some people even call toll roads is like a luxury tax. So only the richer people. I mean, I guess an argument could be made that, the more impoverished people that are in poverty are excluded from driving on those toll roads. So in a way, I mean, they're not only racist, but they're basically not allowing people convenient travel because they can't afford it. So, they're essentially picking on people for not being in the right socioeconomic class. You could argue that that is not a inclusive system. It's a divisive system. And they never go away. That's the worst part. It's just a cash cow. If you got toll roads in your state, hit me up in the comments and you tell me, have you ever seen a toll road that was actually paid off like they originally said they were going to do? Or do they just keep continuing on and adding more and more to it because, now we got to rebuild it. Now we got to do maintenance on it, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I spent enough time on that. You guys can tell I hate toll roads. I will never drive on them. I'll take the freaking dirt road if I have to, rather than take a toll road, because I realize what they do. They steal land from people all the time. Bad deal. And they get to use eminent domain as their justification for doing that, which is complete BS because they are not a public entity. They're a privately owned operation. So number 10, goal 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. So translation, create more regional government bureaucracy to rule over the plebes. Because, you can't do it on your own. You can't get along with the country next door without the UN and the blue helmets coming in and doing it for you. Goal number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Translation, big brother, big data, surveillance state. And I might even add in, the technocrats that control the internet as well. They're going to be involved with all of that as well. The people at Facebook and all this. It's going to have to do with your social credit score. Don't you know? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. A few years ago, China started doing this thing to all of their subjects, I guess we'll say, where each one of them has a little icon floating around above their head. And somebody back at the Big Brother office is sitting there going, yeah, this guy, he didn't go to work on time today. So let's give him a check mark on his social credit score. Later on, he's going to want to go do something. He's not going to be allowed to do that thing because he doesn't have a high enough social credit score. It's a way of separating people, punishing people. It's the most Orwellian thing I've ever seen. And they want to bring that right here into the United States of America and every other place on the earth. There will be no place to escape if they get their way. Goal number 12. This is a biggie. Goal number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Translation, this is forced austerity. More monitoring of human behavior. So if you didn't think they were monitoring you enough in your smart city or whatever, they're definitely going to get you. Even if you're out in the countryside for now. Of course, they're not going to let you stay there for very long. I'm sure Greta Thunberg would surely agree with this one. Goal number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. I mean, because the climate hadn't been changing since the dawn of time. It's only started recently changing since we figured out how to put gasoline in cars, turn oil into gasoline and put that into cars. Before then, there was no climate change, according to these people. Everything was just normal, but then humans came along and ruined everything. So what do they mean? What is the translation there? Well, it means they're going to bring in cap and trade and carbon taxes and carbon credits. They're going to bring in footprint taxes. They need funds to set up the NWO, you see. I mean, how else is this thing going to get all the money that it needs besides controlling the majority of the printing presses around the world unless they tax you to oblivion? That's their goal. Goal 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. There they go again. It sounds good on the surface. They're going to conserve and sustainably use the oceans. I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to dump oil in the ocean. You don't want to dump trash into the ocean. I get it. There's some things that need to be done, perhaps on a global scale, or at least regionally by countries in those regions to control their own, especially pollution of trash into the oceans. That's a terrible thing. But what does this mean coming from the UN? Well, it means total control over the oceans. It means environmental restrictions. It means control all oceans, including mineral rights from ocean floors, and more taxes. That's what it always means. Same thing in every case. It's more taxes, control your life more, make it to where, a little guy can't go out there and, claim an oil claim and set up a company and drill for oil and have success, because these people are going to say it's environmentally unsustainable because they hate oil. They hate fossil fuel. So anything that has to do with that, they're going to get rid of that for sure. Goal 15. Protect and restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. So what does that mean? I mean, again, sounds good. You don't want to just have everything turning into a desert, or, having all the forests chopped down or anything like that, right? I mean, obviously, we've learned some stuff from our past. If they harvest one tree, they usually have to plant 2 or 3 trees in most of these commercial logging situations so that there'll be wood in the future for harvesting, right? I mean, we've learned some stuff along the way from our lessons, here of clear cutting. I mean, that's obviously a bad practice, but I don't think that's going on anymore. Very interesting that they want to get involved with that. They want to make sure and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems and sustainably manage forests. Well, here's the translation. More environmental restrictions, more controlling resources and mineral rights. In one section, the UN calls it rewilding the USA. And I can't remember if that was actually from Agenda 21 or if that's in 2030, but I know I've seen it in the UN's own words. They call it rewilding the USA. And they have this plan where they're going to get us all in these sustainable developed cities where essentially we'll all be living in mega skyscrapers and we'll all have the same amount of space. That way no one feels jealous. I mean, I'm sure there'll be somebody that's like in power, that's in a position of power, and they'll have, a whole floor to themselves or whatever. Meanwhile, you and I will be stuck in shoebox size, super controlled, super monitored rooms where you won't be able to fart without the government knowing what you had for dinner last night. I mean, that's how invasive this stuff is, guys. It's over the top Orwellian. I joke about it, but in reality, this ain't no joke, man. This makes Orwell's 1984 look like a walk in the park and like a good thing. This is horrific. Goal 16. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So they want to basically tear everything we have down and rebuild it in the UN's image and what they think is fair and sustainable and good. Translation to all that, UN peacekeeping missions. And if you know anything about history, those have oftentimes led to some disastrous situations. The International Court of Blind Justice force people together via fake refugee crises and then mediate with more UN peacekeeping. When tension breaks out to gain more control over a region, remove the Second Amendment in the USA. The Second Amendment is one of the last huge barriers that stops these people from implementing their complete tyranny, not only over the United States, but over the world, because at this point, we're all, kind of fighting our own battles as countries, but at a certain point, it'll be too late for us to form any resistance once these people have established world domination. It'll just be too late. We won't be able to do anything about it. Now is the time to buck this system here. So they got to get that Second Amendment out of the way because they want to promote peaceful and inclusive societies. And, in their mind, there is no such thing as a gun owner that's peaceful. So they think that anybody that owns a firearm is a bad guy. That's the gist of that. So anyways, goal 17, last one here. Appreciate you sticking with this. I know these are kind of hard to get through, but I think these are very important because not only is the UN pushing really hard to do all this stuff, the Democrats, our own people in our own country, are pushing for a lot of this same crap. So when they start hitting you with this stuff in the future, maybe you'll have a leg up in the argument. You'll already be expecting this and know how to argue back against it. That's the idea anyways. Goal 17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. There it is again. They love that phrase, sustainable development. So translation, remove national sovereignty worldwide, promote globalism under the authority and bloated Orwellian bureaucracy of the UN. And that's the gist of it, guys. They want to make even more bureaucrats. They want to make even more bureaucracies everywhere they can. Anytime they come up with some new issue, then they have to have some new government agency to investigate that. It's a, I guess, self-fulfilling type of a thing, or a self-consuming type of a thing, like the snake eating its own tail or something like that. I don't really understand it completely, but I do know this. It's against everything our founding fathers fought and died for, establishing this wonderful country we live in called the United States of America. You know, for many years, people like Biden, you know, Obama and George W. Bush to a large degree, even his father, George H.W. Bush, called openly for a new world order. And I remember I was a young lad at that time, and I remember seeing and hearing the President of the United States talking about a new world order, and it sent chills down my spine. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and not in a good way. It was like, oh my God, this is ominous. This is not a good thing. What are you doing? We need to worry about our own country, like Trump tried to do, at least in my opinion. Was he perfect? No, he wasn't perfect, but he should have fought a hell of a lot harder. And I realized he didn't have a lot of support in the matter and stuff like that. He had a lot of his own military people, and his own joint chiefs were openly saying they were going to, you know, come and round him up, like Milley, the guy Milley. I'm careful not to call him a traitor, but I don't know. You tell me, is Milley a traitor to the United States for the actions that he's done and his lack of actions as it regards to Afghanistan and the 13 people that died there, and the billions and billions of dollars worth of ammunition, weapons, tanks, military craft, all sorts of stuff, helicopters, all sorts of stuff, airplanes that we left behind? In the past, we would blow that sort of stuff up before we left if we couldn't take it with us. But nowadays, we just give it over to the enemies of freedom. And I'm arguing in this video and everywhere I can to anybody that will listen, this is all being done intentionally. They lost Afghanistan intentionally after 20 years and trillions of dollars that we invested. And, you know, countless, I don't know how many soldiers died on our side, but lots of other people died on their side too. And as we're finding out from this last week, I believe it was like 8 or 10 people got killed by a drone strike by Biden that were supposed to be this ISIS-K or whatever. And it turned out the guy was a journalist and his family, and it was his kids and stuff. And like Ron Paul said years ago, that is how you create blowback. That is how you create future terrorists that will come and attack the United States when your kids are old enough to be in power or whatever, you know? So, I mean, this is, again, it's like it's all a self-fulfilling prophecy. We go over here, we stir up the hornet's nest, and then we're surprised when, you know, when people are bringing back hornets by the plane load and they bring them into our country. And then one day, 3 years from now, we'll be surprised when some terrorist attacks and it looks a lot like Afghanistan or Iraq right here in our own country because of the type of attacks that are happening. Well, a lot of us, people will be surprised about that. But the ones of us who know what's going on won't be surprised, because this is all being done by design. The invasion on our southern border is part of the UN's plan. Repopulate, what do they call it? Population replacement or something like that. Replacement migration. Yeah, that's it. Replacement migration. Go check that out, in addition to learning more about Agenda 2030. Because, and I'm not telling you to learn this stuff so that you'll agree with it and believe in it. I'm telling you to learn this stuff so that you'll be able to defend the United States Constitution against this treason when it comes to our doorstep. Because it's coming. It's not only coming, it's here. It's here right now in the United States. Everything Biden does is in lockstep with this Agenda 2030. Guys, stock up now. Prepare while you can. Obviously, they're trying to collapse the economy. This is part of bringing in their one world currency. So from now forward, hopefully, whenever I say Agenda 2030, you guys will know what I'm talking about. I highly recommend you guys go read this plan from their own words. Go read Operation Lockstep while you're at it and see what you think about that. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are thinking and what you're prepping on right now. I always love to hear and read your comments. So I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. And until then, guys, we'll see you next time.